Welcome to the Pivot Point Podcast. I'm Ronnie Tyler.
And my name is Lamar Tyler, and together we're the founders of Traffic Sales and Profit, the premier location destination for Black entrepreneurs all across this globe that want to grow and scale their business to the next level. And today we're talking about travel, but Ronnie, not just travel. We're talking about growing a multi-million-dollar travel business in empire. Can I say empire?
Yes.
Empire. But first, before we go to our guest, Ronnie, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Today's question is, can you guess the most traveled to location in the world?
In the world?
In the world.
Or in like the U.S.?
Not
Miami?
in the Tidewater, Virginia region. I like between Smithfield and Norfolk. No, in the world.
No. I would say Paris. Eiffel Tower.
Okay,
like
y'all
that.
let me know in the chat if you think in the comment section you think Ronnie's right. I will give you the correct answer in just a minute. But first, we want to bring on our guest. You excited about today?
Yes, I am.
This is going to be a good one. This is our man right here, Jay Cameron. He is the founder of Maximum Impact Travel. Jay has an amazing story. We're going to get into it today. And pivot, right? It's called the pivot point. Jay has probably one of the most prolific pivots in the history of the TSP community.
Yeah.
Jay Cameron, what's going on, my man?
It is such a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about what you're doing, especially with the show, but then also, of course, with TSP, so we're going to have a good conversation.
We definitely are.
Yes.
And it's funny because as I was sitting here and I was going to my piece about the pivot point, I was like, this dude is like the poster. We need to have like Jay, just like a photo of Jay, like with his hands on his hips. Right? I mean, because who better to think about pivot?
Yes. He has had some major pivots, and I'm excited just to share. I don't even get into it, but I'm just excited to share them.
All right.
Yeah.
So Jay, let's get into it, man. Like in a nutshell, when you meet people and they're like, you know, who are you? What do you do? How do you describe yourself?
I always say it's a loaded question. Because well, what do you do? Well, it's a loaded question.
Don't be Tommy. Tell us what you do.
Well, Tommy, see now, this year, no. But when the pivot came towards travel, when I started with TSP, I was doing summer camps and landscaping.
Yes.
And I had never even been to Africa. I wasn't even traveling.
Does that surprise most people when you tell them that? Because what you do now, like the people about to find out what you do and how many tours, how many people you've taken. So when people are on the tours, they probably think you've been just embedded and rooted there. Like, you know, did your parents bring you here when you were young?
Oh, yeah.
Are most people shocked when you tell them like,
They're
yo?
very shocked because the way the trajectory and how quickly it transitioned. They said, well, you mean to tell me your first trip to Africa was in 2018? And now you're bringing all of these people over to Africa? It seems like you've done this your whole life. But, you know, when you figure out what it is you're supposed to do, it clicks. And then all of the things that I'd done before tied into what I do now. And so it's really fascinating. And every time I think about it, it's like, wow, summer camp ties into what I do with travel. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But everyone's always shocked when we talk about it.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So with Maximum Impact Travel, you do tours all over the world, not just Africa, but how many people have you taken to Africa, like as of today?
More than 1,000.
More than 1,000.
Wow.
More than 1,000 people.
And again, I want to emphasize to everybody, you had not even been to Africa yourself. Like that is what we talk about pivot. And give me some back. So like before the travel, like again, you talked about you had a landscaping business. You were doing youth plays and
summer camp.
on a grand scale,
Yes.
right? Y'all, this ain't like vacation Bible school.
No, this
You know,
is
like
major.
Jay's doing like
It was major.
the Lion King
Yes,
with
yes.
like real costumes and,
Yes.
and they were doing major. And it wasn't like you were successful in that. So it wasn't like, hey, you know, I'm looking for what's the next play. Like you were already successful. You know, tell me about that pivot and that transition.
Well,
How did that
I
happen?
reached a plateau. And so at the end of 2017, I was going through this phase. I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I've done these plays, I've done this summer camp, I've, you know, cut so many lawns. We've done this. There has to be something else. And so that's when I was following you with Game Plan that year. But there was no stream.
Yeah.
So the FOMO kicked in because I'm missing out and everybody's posting, you need to be here. So TSP Live 2018 came around and I was probably one of the first people that signed up. So June comes around, I'm in the building. My son, he was graduating from high school that year, so I brought him as a high school graduation gift.
As VIPs, I remember y'all were on VIP
That's
days.
right. That's right. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? But I knew I needed a different environment. And so what I saw was excellence. And I was like, wow. I said, okay, Lamar, because I'd heard about you, but I'd never really immersed myself in the community. So I was like, all right, I said, look at this. I said, he knows how to put a production on, because the background with the productions, I'm able to look and see, okay, what's the
when
quality?
you do events, you look at you don't just attend.
I saw everything.
You examine.
I'm watching the whole system. I said, wait a minute, I think I need to learn from him. You know, so I'm watching, and then it came time for the mastermind. I'd never heard of what a mastermind was. So I looked at it and I was like, oh, so this is a real commitment here. Okay. And so,
Wait, and you were the first person to buy a ticket to the event and the last person to sign up for the mastermind that night?
You packed up.
Like,
you already packed
literally, it was like, okay, we're cutting the lights out. Here come Jay around the corner.
Walking in, hey, I think I want to say, you unpacked everything.
Jay, I halfway think you was wishing. She was like, yo, it's too late. I've already packed up.
That's a lesson right there, right? That's a lesson right there.
I mean, the thing is that had I missed that window, it would have thrown everything off. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right.
But
That's
I was
good.
going through all of the procrastination in my mind, and then I was counting the cost, but not really counting the cost. So I'm looking at, I have to make this monetary investment without even considering the fact that I might be missing out on a multi-million-dollar business. So I'm counting pennies, literally about to miss out on millions of dollars. So signed up for the mastermind, and I was still trying to figure out, where am I going with this? I was tired of I was tired of the landscaping or doing it the way that I was doing it, because I still have it, but I don't do it the same way because of the things that I learned in the mastermind. But then I was like, okay, what's next? Here I am, I have to figure this out. And I just started being in the community and listening to people and listening to different mindsets. So the mindsets weren't scarcity mindsets. Even though when I signed up, I had the scarcity mindset, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But then after a while, I started hearing other stories. You know, stories inspired me to say, you know what, maybe there is something else out here. And then that's when I went to Ghana. I went to Ghana later that year in 2018.
Okay.
When I went to Ghana, I sat there and I said, my people need to see this. Because I felt deceived by all the different things that I'd heard over the years, you know, children sick, babies with flies and everything. And I said, that's not the complete story. So I was in Benin. That's another West African country, and you were doing a training, and you said, you know, Jay could turn that travel into a multi-million-dollar business if he wants to, a 7-figure business. And I said, wait a minute, I never even thought about that. And you ran it down. You said, well, if he does 24 people a month at this price point, and I said, 24 people a month. You simplified it.
Yeah, that don't sound bad. That's what
I was like, I
most
can
people,
handle it.
when you break the math down, most people's goals actually are not that hard. They just don't know what it takes to.
Right.
Well, you made it very clear. Math was not my subject in school, but I knew how to count money. So I was like, 24, oh yeah, we can do that. So shortly after that, I decided that I was going to at least bring one group. And so we had 35 people come on the first group. But I used the community that I had from all of the plays in the summer camp. So a lot of those people came on the first trip. Then, of course, we know what happened. That was in 2019. Then we know what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
That shut it all down. So then I was able to fall back on my landscaping because that took off again. But then 2021 came around.
Hold on, but before you went in, one of the things I love that you did, because you'd already started to establish team there.
Yes.
Because a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to travel, I'm going to do the things, but they're trying to do it all themselves. But one of the things I always loved about, hey, like the way you operate business, I always tell, Ronnie and people around, hey, like Jay is a great CEO. He has a CEO mindset where he goes in, say, hey, I'm going to put the foundation in, I'm going to create the mission and lead, but I'm going to empower people and put people in place to actually do it. And that's different with a lot of people I see in the travel business, where you got people on the ground, but then you took care of those people during COVID, didn't you?
Oh, I did. Well, I went back over. When they opened the doors to the countries again, I went back over to the continent and started laying the foundation for the teams. But that came from running a summer camp. So I had to have counselors to work with the children in the different age groups. So I knew about building a team. I went back over to Tanzania. That was the first country after Ghana. And just started establishing, just building relationships. Because one thing I believe in is being relational. You can be corporate, but if you're not relational, then the buy-in to what you're doing can be difficult. So I'm very relational. I was going to visit people and sit down and take them out to dinner and just spend some time with them. And from that, that's when the foundation was being laid, like with Morris. You all experienced Morris in Ghana,
Yes.
Right.
and Morris is still with us right now.
That's a good dude.
Oh yeah, so he
was a good guy.
So I love it because one of the things that I think is important for a good pivot is like actually utilizing what you've learned from like the other businesses and things of that nature, right? But I think it's also important that I see other entrepreneurs and business owners, okay, I have this business, I want to start this next business. And then they start too small with the next business. It's almost like they revert back to the beginning, like they have to be on the absolute struggle bus with the second business. And no, like you've learned some things. You know how to build a team. You know how to build risk. So you like streamline that next business and not say, oh, I'm gonna build this up the rough side of the mountain for the next 10 years. It's like, no, let's get it. Let's hit it. I've learned these things with this other business. So I think that that's important to note, that you went over there and you were doing it big and not small when you start your next thing. So yeah.
Yeah, there was no small in it. Part of that is because I recognized I didn't have the same time.
Right.
So it's
That's
like,
true.
okay, these years I put in, years. If I take another 20 years to build this, then that window of opportunity was going to be gone.
Right.
And now what I did not see was what it became and what it is becoming and what's happening now and all of the people that we're bringing over and the influencers. I was having a conversation with someone recently. I said, well, I realize I'm the influencer's influencer. Because a lot of people have audiences. They don't necessarily know how to do this, but their audiences want to go and have these experiences. Then I spend a lot of time on the experience. So here we go back to, we talked about the plays. I curate the experience like a play. So you open up a play, it's normally a wow factor, and then you get into the meat of the production, and then you go through the emotional highs and lows, and then you close it out with a bang. So that's the same thing we do with our trips. So I spend a lot of time just looking at the psychology of a trip. Sometimes I hear people, oh yeah, we're going on a trip. Okay, but you're not going on this experience.
Yes.
Have a good time, it'll be great. But, we put a little extra into it. And so that, to your point about being able to utilize all of the experiences and expertise that came from previous ventures, I now incorporate that into the travel, and it's put us in a very unique position that is it's exciting. I mean, I really enjoyed this. I waited a long time for this to happen, but I didn't see it. And so sometimes when we're pivoting, we don't know where the pivot is going to lead us, or we think that there's only one way to do something, but it's like now I wake up and they say, oh, you work hard. I say, yeah, but this is not the grind work that I used to do. This is something different. I see people's lives change. I see them. I just got this is funny. I just got a message from someone. They said, oh, they went on a trip to Egypt. Oh, guess what? We're getting married. So people are finding, romance and finding business opportunities. So there's a lot that comes with this that goes beyond a trip.
Let me ask you, last year, how many trips did you do total?
Last year, we did about 45 trips last year.
45 trips. And what are some of the countries because you mentioned, starting in Ghana and then Tanzania, like what are the different countries that you cover?
Wow, we go to South Africa, we go to Benin, Togo, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, the Gambia, Egypt, Kenya, Seychelles, and now we've added Ethiopia. We're going to Morocco. We have Brazil. We have Colombia, Costa Rica, London, Paris. So that's England and France. We also do Gullah Geechee in the United States. We're working on Cuba. So we have expanded. That came from a call we had a couple of years ago. And it was one of our VIP day calls. And you said, well, Jay, why don't you think about having other trips on tap? So when people come, they have something else to choose from. The interesting part about that is that we've had families travel with us 3 times in 1 year. So they would go to Ghana, they go to Egypt, they go to Tanzania, all within 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
And I want to make sure everybody's catching that, right?
Wow.
Because them coming back 3 times would be great. 3 times in 1 year, you talking about a family is phenomenal.
1 year. So we've had many people do that. But then the other thing is, it's not just a business to consumer model that we have, but it's also a business to business model. So say, for example, they may want to take trips to Africa or South America. We've made it to where the partnership can work where they can actually benefit from it financially, but we handle everything. And I mean, some of the names that we're working with now, I would have never, when people hear the names, on the inside, they're like, what? How did you get that person and that person? But they see what we're doing, and then someone else says, you know what? They're going to make sure that it's done with excellence. And I will tell you that what inspired us and influenced us is what you two do with TSP. I tell people all the time, I would not be doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for TSP. I wouldn't be thinking like this. My mind would not have been expanded to the point of taking that complete pivot from what was familiar, because sometimes we do what's familiar, we stick with it, we're not willing to step outside of the box. But watching the two of you and watching the results and listening to people on stage and seeing their results, with the children's books, we do children's books now, we do animations, we do documentaries. All of these things came as a result of being a part of TSP community. So it's we're doing it on our end, but we also owe a lot to what you've done and how you've created this community for so many of us. And so I appreciate it. And so if you don't have a support system, and so this is if you don't have a support system, then you can't do certain things. Or if you have someone who's pulling away from you, no, you can't do this. If you can't, how can you, or how can you do this and not think about what I'm doing or that, or all of that comes into play. But today, I will say, when it comes to a team, I couldn't do what I do today without that support. It would be impossible. And so I go back, I think about for example, with my sons. My oldest son, he runs the landscaping company. So he's the one. Now, we had to go through our bumps and bruises along the way. We had to go through, I had to fire him a couple times working with the summer camp. But he learned, and as he said, he came back to me, he said, Dad, you know what? I realized the mistake that I made. Now I trust him with it. So when you talk about the pivots, you talk about the challenges, that's all a part of it. So you talk about how life's. Exactly. That's what happens. My middle son, he does his own thing. But along the way, I'd made sure that they did not get lost in the process. So I thought about it because my middle son, he just turned 23. And I said, wow. I said, they didn't get lost in the phase of me building and learning and even discovering myself. And so all of that to say, today, I couldn't do what I do if I did not have that support system around me. And I'm appreciative for it because a lot of times people think you do it by yourself, but there's no way that it could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I love that as you talk about, like, hey, it's moving through those things. You look now and your son's good. Because a lot of times you don't know the impact. You're like, I hope this thing gonna work out. I think it's gonna work out like this, but I don't really know the impact. But what I also think about, I was telling, somebody's asked us questions about our family and kids. And I was telling somebody like, hey, I think a lot of times we want to have this generational shift. Like, hey, I want, like if I do this thing and it works, it can change like all of the lives that come after me, right? So like the way you've traveled and the way you've given access to now your family to the world in ways that it definitely wouldn't have been the same otherwise. They might have traveled and done some things, but even if you shortcutted that process.
Yes.
And they saw you do things and did it, like will change them, but it'll also change their children and their children's children, right? And all that flow down. But like you said, it's tricky during the process because you just hope it'll work out. But in order for that shift to happen, it has to be sacrifice. And I think a lot of times we want the end result without the risk of the actual sacrifice.
Well, there's lots of sacrifice. There are things that you don't even realize that you're sacrificing. You sacrifice time, but the reward is greater.
Yeah.
So I go back and I think about all of the time that I sacrifice. I think about the money that I sacrifice. I think about the money that I've lost. But then I call that experience tuition. I said, okay, you know what? I might have lost $10,000 here. I might have lost $20,000 there. But when I get that contract that pays me $150,000, and I know how to navigate because of the instincts They're instincts that I've developed over the years, and I can automatically say, you know what, let's not go down that road. Or if I'm talking to someone and they've worked with someone who has not made the sacrifices, I'll come into the room as the expert because, I've been there. I lost $25,000 doing that, but now I can help somebody else not lose $25,000. And they say, well, let's give him the contract because he knows what he's doing. Right. And then I'll remember, that was a hard loss back in the day, but now I'm helping someone else not make that loss today. And it goes, so I see that all the time. Yeah. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and they were trying to figure out how to create a membership program. They have an audience. And I'm remembering, I'm thinking back, I'm watching what you all do. Yeah. And I said, you have a room full of people, and how do you recoup your expenses on the back end? And they're like, recoup expenses on the back end? I was like, you're just relying on tickets?
Yeah. It's like, but that's like talking French to most people. It's
like you're trying to, so now they're talking to some other folks in TSP to help them set up their membership program.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, TSP is in you. It's in you now.
It is.
You can't even hear somebody making plans like that without saying, hold on now.
Yes.
What's the objective?
Because you're looking, you can see the room,
Yeah, but I love experience tuition. Like, I'm going to use that from now on, right? I've paid a lot of experience tuition as well, but you have to learn from that, and it makes you stronger and smarter the next time. So I know sometimes people don't like to have like failures or things that don't come out just right, but if you learn from it, then it benefits you. So I love that.
And that's how I have to look at it, because it can take you down if you start thinking about some of the losses.
It can take you out.
It can take you out.
Yes.
I've watched a lot of people get taken out because they can't process it to say, all right, this is a moment. I can pick myself back up and we can keep going. And this comes with the territory. If you think you're going to get into business and always win, then you're eventually going to lose, because there are those times when you have to take an L in order to prepare you for how to handle a win. Sometimes those moments when you're at the bottom is when you're like, okay, I will not hire too many people too quickly. I will not do this again. I was having a conversation with someone recently. They were talking about how they hired too many people, and they were not taking money for themselves. And I said, well, guess what? I said, well, you work for them.
Basically.
And the light bulb came on to where they needed to make some modifications. Now, they don't want to quit their business. Right. They just make the modifications. That's expensive, because sometimes those, depending on how many people you have, that can be a lot of money each month. But when the light bulb came on, that's that experience tuition. They won't find themselves in that position again. And now when the bigger opportunity comes, they'll be ready for it. And that's the part I think that, it's all about perspective. And that's what I hold on to. Every time something happens that's not perfect, or when you do international business or international travel, you're dealing with different cultures all of the time. Every single day. You don't know what games they're going to play. That even pulled out some of my old DC street knowledge.
Wow.
I had to tap into that going into some of these places like Egypt. Like, y'all playing games. So it makes you better as an entrepreneur, but you do deal with the frustrations, and you have to make a determination, the mindset that you're going to have and the perspective that you're going to operate with. And that success really comes with your ability to be patient with the journey.
I like that.
If you're not willing to be patient with the journey and you jump off too quickly, then you could be jumping off right before the very thing you've been waiting for. Yes, it gets frustrating. Yes, the money can get funny at times. But when you learn the art of perseverance and just saying, you know what, if I hang in there, sometimes you win because you hang in there a little bit longer than the person who quit before you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that's going to be an important message for right now, because there are a lot of people that are quitting right now because of the economy and the state of things in this country, but you just have to hang in there. Jay, what would you think is the key to a good pivot? What do you think is some of the things that you've done or some of the lessons you've learned that were key to making the pivot to another whole different type of business?
I would always take into consideration how I could utilize something that I've done before in the pivot. So even with travel, I said, well, I have a joke. I said, well, I didn't stop summer camp. I said, I just take adult international field trips. So I was able to take that knowledge and say, okay, how can I create this experience in another way? So, because sometimes even though travel is nothing that I thought of, I'm still using the skills. So the learning curve, to your point earlier, the learning curve is not so drastic to where I'm having to now learn a whole new language, even though I do have to learn new languages, internationally. But I would always say, what can I use from my previous experiences in this pivot? That would be the first thing that I would do. Then I would consider the cost. You do have to consider the cost. Is it the time cost, the financial cost? So those are things you do consider. But then look at the reward. What will it cost me if I don't do it?
Wow.
That's
Wow.
the other part. What if I don't make this pivot right now? What will it cost me if I don't do it?
Right. And I kind of feel like it seems like it's so different, but I feel like it's still the core of you. Like, I feel like you're in this business as far as like your passion for working with the students, for like whatever that was that you were giving to the students. I feel like you're still giving to the adults. You're still giving to this business. And so it's not like, oh, it's something totally new for you. And I feel like you're still in that kind of lane. I think sometimes people think, oh, I got to pivot and it's got to be something that's foreign to me, something that I don't enjoy, something I'm not passionate about. But I still see it's different, but it's consistent. Like, I think if somebody hadn't seen you in 10 years and they see you now, they'll probably be like, I get it. I get it. I totally get like why he's doing this and why he's doing it for the people and taking us, Black Americans over to Africa. So I think you're still remaining true to yourself with that.
I agree 100%. And I was joking with someone again. When we had the summer camp, the children would cry at the end of the camp because they wouldn't want to leave. But at the end of the tours, the people cry because they don't want to leave. And I said, this is interesting to see the same results with the adults, even if they're riding on the bus, and when the adults fall asleep and the head go back, and then I said, this is the same thing the children did, because they would go to sleep. The children would go to sleep on the bus for summer camp, but the adults go to sleep on the bus when we're doing the tours. So their heads go back and then lean it all to the side, and it's the same thing. But the biggest part of it is wanting to see people's lives change and have exposure to something different, and to see that we as Black businesses can work together. It doesn't have to be drama. It doesn't have to be halfway put together, but it can be done with a level of excellence. The reality is, sometimes people come and they say, I had very low expectations. I said, well, I know you did, because that's culturally, that's just how we see business.
We see a Black business, we're like, I feel like a lot of times people feel like they're doing us a favor.
Yes.
Yes. I'm trying to help a Black business out. I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna suffer in silence.
Or they want to hook up along the way. I'm
exactly.
gonna try to come support you, but I was going with this other company. I was like, cool,
what can you do for me?
It's like, and that's the thing. We're like, hey, we're going to give you the best experience possible. And when you come back, we've had so many people say on the trip, I forgot how much money I spent. I would have paid more money for it.
That's good.
I said, really? Well, let's test that theory. Let's see if we can.
You don't say.
Raise the price a little bit. But I tell people all the time, I don't wake up in the morning thinking about money. Money is not my motivating factor, again, to your point, because this is the core of what I do. And any entrepreneur, if they tap into what it is, if they're doing it beyond the money, then when the money isn't always the way they want it to be, that will give them the ability to keep going when they want to quit. Please don't misunderstand that to say that the money isn't important. It is important, but I find that we make more money because we focus on the product that we're delivering and making sure that people are well taken care of. And this is just a principle that I've always believed in. Even when we did the summer camp, we were very successful. But now the sky's the limit, because when someone hears the story, they're like, wow, I think I want to at least see what they're doing. Let's have this experience. And we go out of our way to make sure that we deliver every time. Whether it's one person or 150 people, they get the same level of service.
What are people saying when they come off of your trips? Is it life-changing? What's the sentiment? How are they feeling?
Well, that is the sentiment, because they are having experiences they've never had before. Mm-hmm. They're seeing things they've never seen before, and then they're dispelling a lot of myths and lies they've heard over the years. So they're coming in and they're saying, wait a minute, I thought that the people didn't like us over here. I thought that this was one particular way, and they see that it's different. So at first they have a moment of shock. But then they taste the food, they see how kind the people are, they see how organized everything is. So at the end, they're like, wow, This was an experience I'll never forget. And I hear it over and over again. If you just watch the different testimonials on our channel, you see what people have to say, and they speak from their hearts, and they want to share. So whether or not it's definitely a life-changing experience, but it's nothing I would have imagined being as impactful as it is. And what I'm hearing over and over again, then they'll bring their family and friends. One grandmother, 83 years old, she went to Ghana in October and turned around and brought her grandson back and a friend in June. So I'm looking at it, where people spend their money tells you what's really
Exactly.
the impact. And
I don't listen to what they say. I listen to what they spend.
They spend their money, and they'll constantly refer us, or they'll come back themselves, or they're excited about the next adventure because they know no trip is the same. So they'll say, well, you know what, I'm bringing more and more of my friends. And that's what we see with some of our affiliates, that they'll bring 9 people. We had one lady who brought 9 people to Senegal and now taking 9 people to Brazil. And she's just so excited about it. So definitely life-changing experiences.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned about some L's, right? Like having to take some L's, and Ronnie's talking about that what y'all call it?
Experience tuition.
Experience tuition, right? Taking some L's. What are some L's that in this cycle of building this, multiple 7-figure travel brand that you faced and you had to kind of, regroup and come out of?
Oh, wow.
That's literally was my next question. I was going to say, what lessons did you learn the hard way?
So that was the next question. Okay.
You stole my question.
Yeah, trusting people on the ground that we have the same philosophy or the same standards. So you'll get there and it's, oh yeah, we'll have the transportation worked out for you a particular way. You get there, you find out the transportation is not what you expected. You've already paid them in full. You're like, hey.
Which is a reflection on you and your company, because your clients coming over, they don't know about this transportation, and they don't care about none of that.
They don't care.
All of it is maximum impact.
That's right. All of it's maximum impact. Having to make the switch from the transportation company that you've already paid in full to get a new one because they're not willing to give you the quality of what you want. Wow. That's an L. That's a several $1,000s L. You go to the hotel, and the hotel will tell you that you're already paid in full. You get to the hotel. They oversell the hotel. Don't tell you that they oversold the hotel.
This stuff hurt just listening to it.
Yeah, it hurt really bad because the day before I went to make sure that everything was on point.
And they told you it was good.
They said everything is fine. They let your clients, they let 25 of your clients sit in the hotel lobby for 4 hours before telling them that they don't have the rooms. Then they go and they say, well, we're going to start putting you at the 25 clients at hotels around the city, but some had nicer hotels than others. And so now you have to take the L because I have to make sure my people are good.
Right.
So even though we're making all these adjustments, all right, so I'm hey, let me give you some money back because of the inconvenience and going through all of that, another several $1,000s L. There's those types of scenarios, and it frustrates you, and you really want to use language that's not becoming of the standard that you.
but let me ask you, like in a situation like that, like from the business perspective, what's that conversation like with the clients? Because again, it's like sometimes clients understand, sometimes they like, yo, I don't care about none of that.
It depends.
And especially I would imagine, right, because these, again, are not just like, hey, I'm going down the road to Myrtle Beach.
No, this
is like an experience where they're like, hey, I'm going into a life-changing, some of them things I've wanted to do my whole life, and to be faced with things that are out of your control. How do you handle that?
Well, you have to have a real conversation, and then you have to be willing to make some compensation. If you do that, then everybody's typically okay. And that's where we haven't run into anybody that's been irate, mainly because we do culture training. And we prepare them for, hey, you're going to a different country. Leave America in America. Pack your patience. So that's already into the psychology. Their mindset is already, okay, there may be some things that I don't expect.
Right.
How we handle it on the back end is what they really look forward to. Oh, here's another scenario. This was a big one. This was a $10,000 L. In Tanzania, we were flying back, coming from Zanzibar. The airline decided they were delayed. They didn't have everything mapped out. Our guest had a connecting flight. They missed a connecting flight. I had two choices. I could have said, well, go to your travel insurance. It's not our fault. Instead, I said, you know what? We're going to put you up in the hotel, and we'll pay for you to get the earliest flight out of here, because they missed their flight. There was no, we reschedule you. It was two different airlines. So two people who had never been on business class, the only flight that was available was business class. I had to put them on business class. The other people were already on business class. I had to pay for that business class flight. But they've been with me on 2 more trips, all of them since then.
And that's the part I think most people,
Yes.
we're looking so short-sighted. We don't see the long-term goal is, let me do the right thing now so I can retain this customer forever.
Yes.
Not for the next year, but forever. And then have that person that not only goes on the trip, but then becomes an ambassador for you to send more people to come on the trips and have their life change.
Oh yeah, we one person became an affiliate and started bringing more people on the trips because they knew they were going to be taken care of. They weren't going to be left hanging trying to figure out, where are we going to stay? What are we going to do? We put them in the hotels, and we took care of their accommodations and it's their flight. And so from there, that was it. It was a easy. It was painful because I didn't want to give up the $10,000 like that, but that's what I had to do. So I made that back and then preserved the reputation of the company, and really kind of set a standard for them so they know they're going to be taken care of. And so we'll do that on many different levels. And so we think about that along the way, and we make sure that people are taken care of. And that's just the bottom line. It hurts at times, but in the end, I play the long game. I tell Freddie all the time, I say, I play the long game. I said, that's how I do it. I said, sometimes you take a loss a little bit right here, but if you hang in there for the long game, then the returns will come back.
I love it. And if I could just add, you talked about the long game. What I think you're great at, right? One of many things I think you're great at, and you've been great inside of the traffic sales and private TSP community, is collaborations. And I feel like collaboration is a long game. Like tell us about some of the collaborations you've done, and then tell us how you view those.
Those are my people. I mean, again, this goes back to TSP. And I look at where the majority of my clients come from, and what helped propel me to the multiple 7 figures is being in the collaborative and being in the mastermind. So I think about Freddie with Urban Intellectuals, and we've really established a strong friendship. So it's not just business. I think what happens is we look at collaborations as business when it's really relational and it's really about friendship. Freddie and I just took his father to Cuba last week. And he's 94 years old.
94 years old.
And we're just hanging out. There was no business going on. We were just making sure his father had a great time. And so that established the relationship to say, well, now his father and I have a relationship, and we're friends. So when I think about Shanteria with Travel Divas, she was really the first person who watched what I was doing and said, Jay, I want to give you a shot. I believe in what you're doing. Sent 4 groups to Ghana. She wasn't servicing Ghana at that point. She said, we're going to send 4 groups to Ghana with you. And now we're picking up her Brazil, her Colombia, of course, Ghana. We're doing Senegal. And it goes to the relational component, but then also being able to deliver. Cecily was so creative. Yes. She took over 100 people to Ghana. So I'm looking at this, and we have Coach Cash. She's going to Tanzania. Of course, you all are going to Ghana.
Yeah, we're going to Ghana. We'll talk about it in a second. We're definitely talking about that.
So all of this comes out of the TSP community. And anytime I hear someone say, oh, no, I can't be a part of those things, I'm saying, well, okay. All right, you're missing out. Because sometimes this didn't just start or happen overnight. It took me a few years being in the mastermind and then establishing the relationships and the credibility for someone to trust me with their brand.
Yeah.
If I just show up, hey, y'all, I'm trying to sell you something, I'm hustling like I'm hustling on the street in D.C. or whatever, somebody needed to watch and see he's consistent.
That's the part.
He's consistent, he's patient, he's actually cool. He doesn't always hang out and talk a whole lot. Well, I do if you get to know me. But it's like, but you know what? Let's see what's going on. I'm willing to give him a shot. I'm willing to listen. And so that's what I've seen, the patience, the consistency, and the willingness to make an investment is how I believe, or is one of the keys to success. And if someone is not willing to do that, and I don't care what they're a part of, it's going to fizzle out.
But you're right, because a good friend of Ronnie and I's, right, because who was a mastermind client, right? Like you said, so many of our friends now, people that were started as clients, and then we developed relationship over the years, like yourself.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, she told us, hey, sometime when new people come in, they think because they've paid the price and joined the program, that gives them relationships. It doesn't give them access. And relationship is what built when people see how you show up every single day. They see how you go about your business. They see how you take care of your clients and customers. And then once they get to know more about you, lay the foundation and spend time, like you said, hey, me, Freddie, and his 94-year-old father in Cuba, building that relationship. Then as we get the stones of that relationship, then we're ready to go further.
That's right.
Then we're ready to do more. Then I trust and I know that the things that you say you're going to hold up to, I'm going to hold up to my part, and we're going to make things happen together.
And everybody's making the same investment. See, when everybody's making the same investment, that also communicates. And if you're consistently making the same investment, someone sees that to say, well, okay, I'm making the same investment. He's making the same investment. There's something going on here from a mindset perspective. We're thinking the same. There's a synergy that's working. Where for those, anytime, there'll be people outside in different, spaces that will come and say, hey, I want to do a trip. But then I listen to their mindset. And it's like, have you even thought about your own business? And they're trying to hustle it versus saying, you know what, I've paid my dues, I've done these different things, I want to add this travel component to what I've already done. Let's sit down and map this thing out the right way, and how this can really become something long term, if you will. So I've seen that in the mastermind, and I've also seen it in the collaborative. It is it's amazing, because I'm not one for joining things. I'm very skeptical. I'm that dude.
That's why he was the last one.
The last one.
I'm the last one.
Ronnie was still doing the paperwork.
But she was still filling up. We still had pens and stuff.
Like literally the last one. Ronnie was like, I was packing up, had everything in my box.
And I did.
And somebody came, like,
y'all said 10 o'clock. I heard what you said on the stage. You said if you get it by 10 o'clock.
James at the door like 9:59 and a half.
Hey, Ron.
All right, let me go in there. I think I still need to make decisions.
But that's so important, because for people, there are a lot of people who are skeptical, because you see folks come in, they blow in, hey, we're doing all of this, and then they're gone.
Right.
You all have been consistent. So that's something that I watched. But there are a lot of men who sit at home and they're like, I don't know. You trying to be in this thing, I don't know about that. I'm trying to figure this out. That was me. But the results came. I had to be patient with the results. Now the person who was the most skeptical will be the one that will blow the trumpet the loudest. And that's just a principle in life. If you do what you're supposed to do, the people, they call them the doubting Thomases and all of those people, if you do what you're supposed to do consistently, they will be the biggest advocates and your biggest ambassadors. And so that's what I'm proud to say, and I'll let people know when they ask, well, how did you do this at TSP?
And also, you know what? It takes time. It takes patience. I think sometimes people want that get rich quick. It's going to happen in a couple of months. And, we had to do some coaching sessions. We had to try some things. We had to, try a few things before it's like, okay, now this has caught on. This is it, right? But imagining just being so impatient and joining something and thinking everything is hinged on this one idea or this one try, right? And they're losing out on so much, but by not just being patient and letting it come to them. And sometimes that could be 6 months. It could be a year. It could be whatever. But you have to be patient and try some different things before it kind of catches on. But yeah.
Jay, one question before we wrap.
Sure.
What's next for Maximum Impact Travel?
Well, we're going to continue serving our influencers. Of course, anyone can sign up. But we're going after the influencers, because the influencers, these economic times, they're discovering that they're not leveraging their audiences the way they're happy for the likes and the follows, but they don't know how to monetize their audience through travel. So we're showing them how to do it. And so a lot of people that we work with outside of TSP, they're seeing what we're doing, and they're like, wow, you mean to tell me we can make X amount of dollars, and we put together a plan for them. So that's who we're focused on. Of course, anyone can travel with us, but our affiliate program, so when families want to go and they want to bring 10 or 12 people, we make it where there's a financial incentive for them. But that's where we're going. And we're going to continue adding destinations in the African diaspora. We have our documentaries, we have our educational series, our children's books, and our animations, our activity books. All of that's on the way. So Maximum Impact Travel is there, but it's also Maximum Impact Enterprises, because we are, and the funny part is, it's like we're coming back around to the summer camp component. It's still not forgetting the children and making sure that they get the resources and inspiring them to want to travel. And that's our messaging, and that's what we're doing.
I love it. Thank you, Jay, man, again, for coming and sharing your inspiring story of the pivot. Hopefully, all of y'all got that, and you realize how one pivot can not just change you, change your family. Everybody comes after you, but then also the family and the lives of so many other people. Ronnie, I said earlier, you guessed that, you said Paris, right?
I said Paris.
You guessed that Paris was the most visited destination in the world. You were wrong. The lie detector has shown you are not the father. You're not the traveler.
I'm not the father
You're
or
not
the
the
traveler.
traveler. You're not
Okay,
the mama.
I thought I was the father, but okay.
You're not getting flown in. None of that. You're wrong. You want to know what the city is?
Yes, flew
Hold on,
in.
Jay. Do you know? Let's have Jay take a stab at it.
I'm
I don't think
stuck.
you've been to this place yet.
Yeah, I'm stuck. Let's see here. It's not Paris. Interesting that it's not Paris. City. I'm going to have to go with London.
Okay, not London. According to the team,
Rome.
and I'm saying according to the team because in case it's incorrect, don't be like, Lamar, you're wrong. Just tag in the comments, say team, you're wrong. According to the team, the most traveled to destination is Istanbul.
Really?
What?
Yes. Ronnie doesn't believe that.
In Turkey.
Yes. Somebody give me AI. And not Allen Iverson. No, I'm just kidding. Istanbul. So Istanbul is the answer. If you guessed that correctly, and be down in the comments checking it out. Wanted to make sure. Ronnie, you okay?
I don't believe you.
It's not, I didn't write it down. I didn't write this down.
Okay.
All right, Istanbul, y'all.
I learned something today.
There we go.
Okay.
So again, I want to thank all of you for watching another episode of The Pivot Point. Hopefully you were encouraged today to know that you can do more and be more, and that it is okay to pivot, especially in your business, especially in your life, because guess what? It's going to happen whether you want to pivot or not, right? Those things are happening and they're going to come. Hey, if you want to find out more information about Jay and what he does with Maximum Impact Travel, go down to the description. You can click the link and find out about that. We have one of Jay's movies, right, about Tanzania on the Convo Network, on the streaming network side. So we're not just here on YouTube. You can go there as well. We got the link to that. And also want to let you know that we are going to Ghana as part of our 10-year anniversary for Traffic Sales and Profit. We are going this spring. So we want you to go with us if you want to experience the culture, the food, the music. It's so much, right? We took our whole family in 2021, kids, parents, everything. It was the most, probably, I think that was like my number one trip.
Yeah, so far.
Out of all of, we travel a
life.
lot. My number one trip was with Maximum Impact Travel and Jay to Ghana. We want you to experience what we experienced, and we're going to put a little bit of TSP, little business wealth magic on top of that too, right? So we want you to be a part of it. The links to everything are down in the description. Also, make sure you subscribe and follow us so that you can join in for the next conversation here on The Pivot Point.